Most people believe that the struggles they face in life are created by the outside world, by their job, their relationships, their finances, or by some twist of fate that seems determined to push them down. But the truth is, the majority of our mental suffering doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from how we see it, how we interpret it, and how we allow it to live inside our mind. The root of mental struggle isn't found in the noise outside. It's found in the conversation happening in here. And until you recognize that, you'll be forever trying to fix the wrong thing. Think about it. Two people can experience the exact same event. Let's say they both lose a job. One person spirals into despair, feeling worthless, betrayed and hopeless about the future. The other feels the sting, yes, but then sees it as an opening, a push towards something they've been too afraid to chase. The situation is identical, but the story they tell themselves is completely different. And that story is everything. When you look deeply, you'll see that the real battle is not against the event, but against the meaning we attach to it. The Shaolin masters have known this for centuries. They train not only the body, but the mind, because the body can endure far more than you imagine. But it's the mind that will decide if you keep going or give up. They understand that the mind is like a lens, and if the lens is cracked, everything you see will appear distorted, even if reality itself hasn't changed. The first step in transforming your mind is to develop the courage to actually see the lens you're looking through. Most people never do. They assume what they see is the truth, forgetting that their perspective is not reality. It's only one version of reality. And that version might be colored by years of fear, by past experiences, by insecurities you've never questioned. When I started training with some of the wisest people I've ever met, I noticed something immediately. They were masters of observation, not just of the world around them, but of themselves. They would notice when anger arose, when fear took hold, when the mind started spinning stories. And instead of letting those emotions drag them into reaction, they would simply observe as if watching clouds pass through the sky. That's not because they were cold or emotionless. It's because they had learned the first rule of mental mastery. You are not your thoughts. You are not your feelings. You are the one who can choose how to respond to them. We forget this because we live in a world that rewards reactivity. Something happens and we feel we must immediately respond, post about it, argue about it, fight it, defend it. But the mind that reacts without awareness is a mind that becomes a prisoner of its own habits. And over time, those habits harden into identity. You start to believe you are an anxious person, or someone who can't trust people, or someone who always fails. But those are just stories. And a story can be rewritten if you're willing to pick up the pen. To recognize the root of your mental struggle, you have to become still enough to hear it. The noise of modern life makes this difficult. We fill every quiet moment with scrolling, with talking, with distraction. But if you can sit with yourself without judgment, you might hear the patterns in your thoughts. You might notice that you're replaying an argument from 3 years ago, or imagining a failure that hasn't happened yet, or comparing yourself to someone whose life you only see through filtered images online. And in that moment of recognition, you gain power because you've shifted from being inside the thought to observing it. This is where transformation begins. You don't need to fight your mind. You don't need to shout over it or force it into silence. You simply need to see it clearly. Once you see the pattern, you can decide if it's serving you or destroying you. Once you see the source, you can stop blaming the symptoms. Every time you face a challenge, ask yourself, is the problem really out there, or is it in here? Is it the event itself, or the meaning I've attached to it? This simple question can open the door to a completely different life because it places responsibility and therefore power back in your hands. The Shaolin way is not about never feeling pain or pretending life is always perfect. It's about training the mind to remain steady, to stay rooted in clarity, no matter how strong the storm outside. The root of mental struggle is the belief that we are powerless. The truth is, we are never powerless. Not if we can master the way we see. When you change the lens, you change your world. We live in a time when the word discipline often feels heavy, like it's about restriction or forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. But in the Shaolin tradition, discipline is not about punishment. It's about freedom. It's about building a mind and body that serve you instead of betray you. True discipline is the art of aligning your actions with your intentions over and over until it becomes second nature. And that kind of discipline doesn't make your life smaller. It makes it bigger. Most people treat discipline like a short-term sprint. They get motivated. They start something new, going to the gym, meditating, eating better. And they push hard for a few days or weeks. But then life happens. A bad day at work, a late night, a little self-doubt, and suddenly the commitment fades. The problem isn't that they don't want it badly enough. It's that they've built their actions on emotion instead of principle. Emotion will change with the weather. Principle will hold even in the storm. Shaolin discipline begins with the smallest commitments. Things so simple they almost seem meaningless. It could be waking up and making your bed the same way every morning. It could be taking 3 slow, deep breaths before you respond to anything stressful. It could be spending 10 minutes each day moving your body no matter how tired you are. These aren't just habits. They're training sessions for your willpower. They're small proofs to yourself that you can trust your own word. And trust in yourself is the foundation of every kind of strength. When I trained with people who had devoted their lives to discipline, I noticed something that changed my perspective forever. They didn't just practice when they felt inspired. They practiced especially when they didn't. And that's the real test. Anyone can follow through when it's easy, but discipline is built in the moments when your mind is screaming for comfort and you choose commitment instead. Those choices might seem small in the moment, but they compound over time into unshakable inner strength. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't rely on perfection. You're not trying to create a flawless streak you can never break. You're building resilience through consistency, knowing that even if you fall off one day, you'll get back on the next. And every time you return, you reinforce the identity of someone who keeps going. That identity becomes the quiet, steady fuel that drives you through challenges most people wouldn't even attempt. In the Shaolin mindset, discipline is not a cage, it's a path. It's not about limiting your life, it's about shaping yourself so you can handle more of it. When you train your body to move with intention and your mind to focus without wandering, you stop wasting energy on the wrong battles. You start channeling your strength into the things that matter most. And over time, you begin to feel a kind of freedom that has nothing to do with circumstances and everything to do with control over yourself. There's another piece to this. Discipline is contagious. When you live with consistency, the people around you notice. They feel it in the way you show up, in your reliability, in the way you keep promises, even when they're inconvenient. That steadiness gives others permission to believe they can do the same. You become a walking example that a disciplined life isn't about rigidity. It's about empowerment. It's tempting to think that the big transformations in life come from single dramatic events. One major decision, one big opportunity. But in reality, the most profound changes come from the quiet, unglamorous moments when no one is watching. It's in the early mornings when you choose to get up instead of hitting snooze. It's in the evenings when you choose reflection over my mindless distraction. It's in the discipline to keep showing up for your own growth day after day, even when it feels like nothing is happening. That's the paradox. Discipline might feel slow, but its results are inevitable. And by the time the change is visible to others, it's already been growing inside you for a long time. You start to realize that you no longer need to push yourself through force. You move forward naturally because discipline has become part of who you are. And once that happens, no setback can take it from you, because while the world can take away comfort, money, or opportunity, it cannot take away the discipline you've built. That is yours. That is your true wealth. The strongest person in the room is not the one who can lift the most. It's the one who has mastered the ability to keep lifting every day, no matter what. When people think about strength, they often think about force, about pushing harder, grinding longer, enduring more. But in the Shaolin tradition, there's a deeper understanding. Real strength is rooted in stillness. It's not just the ability to move mountains. It's the ability to remain unmoved when the world is shaking around you. Stillness isn't weakness. Stillness is mastery. It's the state where your mind stops being pulled in 100 directions and instead becomes a clear, steady river that flows exactly where you choose. Most of us live in constant noise. Not just the noise of traffic, phones, and conversations, but the noise of our own thoughts. We replay the past. We worry about the future. We rehearse arguments that will never happen and compare ourselves to people we've never even met. That mental chaos burns energy without moving us forward. And it's no wonder so many people feel exhausted all the time. It's not their bodies that are tired, it's their minds. Shaolin practice teaches that the mind can be trained the same way the body can. And just like with the body, strength comes from tension and release, from effort and recovery. Meditation, breath control, and mindful movement aren't just spiritual ideas. They're tools for conditioning your awareness. When you train your mind to return to the present moment again and again, you build the muscle of focus. And when you have focus, you have freedom. I remember the first time I truly experienced this kind of stillness. It wasn't dramatic. There was no thunderclap or grand revelation. It was simply a moment during training when I became fully aware of my breath, the ground under my feet, and the weight of my own body. The noise in my head faded, and what was left was clarity. That's when I understood the stillness is not about shutting out the world. It's about being so rooted in yourself that the world can't knock you off balance. And here's the paradox. When you embrace stillness, you actually become more effective in action. Most people react to situations like a knee-jerk reflex, driven by whatever emotion hits them first. But when you can pause, breathe, and act from a place of clarity, your actions become precise. You stop wasting energy on battles that don't matter. You stop getting pulled into other people's storms. You respond instead of react. This doesn't mean life stops challenging you. Far from it. The storms will still come. Loss, conflict, uncertainty, unexpected change. But when you have cultivated stillness, you stop meeting those storms with panic or resistance. You meet them with presence. You don't have to control the wind or the waves. You just need to control your own stance. That's when strength stops being something you have to prove and becomes something you simply are. The truth is, we all have this capacity. Stillness is not something you're born with or without. It's something you practice. And like any skill, it starts with small, deliberate steps. It might be as simple as taking 2 minutes each morning to sit quietly and notice your breathing. It might be walking without your phone, just paying attention to the rhythm of your steps. It might be pausing before you answer a difficult question, giving yourself the gift of a single deep breath. Over time, these moments add up until stillness is no longer something you do, it's something you live. When you live with stillness, you stop being pulled into every passing drama, every spike of fear, every distraction disguised as urgency. You start to see the difference between what is truly important and what is just noise. And that clarity, combined with discipline, makes you unstoppable because you are no longer wasting your strength on things that don't matter. The modern world will tell you that you need to be constantly moving, constantly producing, constantly proving your worth. But Shaolin wisdom flips that idea on its head. It says, move when it's time to move, rest when it's time to rest, and never let your actions be driven by chaos. True power is not in the frenzy, it's in the pause before the strike. And here's the most beautiful part. When you cultivate stillness, you don't just change your own life. You change the lives of the people around you. Your calm becomes a refuge for others. Your steadiness becomes a silent invitation for them to find their own. You stop adding to the noise of the world and instead become a source of peace in it. Because, in the end, the most unshakable strength you will ever find is the kind that doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to rush, and doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. There's a truth that Shaolin practice makes very clear. If you want strength, if you want growth, if you want mastery, you cannot avoid discomfort. The mind naturally resists it. We all want the path that feels smooth, the one without obstacles, the one where nothing tests our patience or our limits. But here's the thing, a life without challenge doesn't create resilience, it creates fragility. And fragility can't stand up to the real storms of life. When you train in the Shaolin tradition, discomfort isn't something to escape, it's something to step into with awareness. It's not about punishing yourself or seeking pain for the sake of it. It's about recognizing that every challenge, physical, mental, or emotional, is a forge. And in that forge, the heat and the pressure shape you into something stronger, more focused, and more capable than you were before. Think about any skill you've ever learned. Whether it's mastering a movement, learning a new language, or building a business, there's always that phase where it feels awkward, frustrating, maybe even impossible. That's the discomfort zone. Most people turn back when they hit that wall. They say, it's not for me, or I'm not good at this, when in reality, they're standing right on the edge of transformation. The difference between the ones who grow and the ones who quit is not talent. It's the willingness to stay with that discomfort long enough to break through it. In Shaolin training, we have movements that seem impossibly difficult when you first try them. Your legs burn, your arms shake, your mind tells you to stop. And yet, when you stay with it, when you focus not on the pain but on the breath, something shifts. The body adapts, the mind quiets, and what once felt impossible becomes effortless. This is not just about the body, it's a lesson for every part of life. The world outside the temple isn't so different. Maybe your challenge isn't holding a deep stance for minutes at a time. Maybe it's having that difficult conversation you've been avoiding, or sticking with a new habit long enough for it to take root, or facing a loss that feels unbearable. In each of those moments, you have the same choice you do in training. Step back into comfort and stay the same, or lean into discomfort and grow. But here's where it gets interesting. Discomfort doesn't just build strength. It builds clarity. When you're under pressure, you start to see your own patterns. You notice the stories your mind tells you to get out of doing hard things. You see where you've been holding back, and you see what you're actually capable of when you refuse to quit. That self-awareness is priceless because it doesn't just make you better at handling one challenge, it makes you better at handling all of them. And here's another truth. The discomfort never completely goes away. Every time you grow, you step into a new level of challenge. The difference is, over time, you stop fearing it. You stop seeing it as a sign that something's wrong and start seeing it as a sign that you're on the right path. You develop trust in yourself, trust that you can walk into difficulty and come out stronger. It's easy to admire the end results in others, the confidence, the skill, the peace. But what you're really seeing is a lifetime of choosing discomfort over ease again and again. You're seeing someone who didn't run from the fire, but learned how to stand in it without being consumed. And if you want that same depth of strength, you don't need to wait for the perfect conditions to start. You start by noticing the small places where you can stretch yourself today. You start by taking one more breath before you quit, by holding on just a little longer, by saying yes to the opportunities that scare you. Each of those moments is like a drop of water wearing away the stone of fear and hesitation. In the end, discomfort is not the enemy, it's the teacher. It's the gateway to every breakthrough, every moment of real change, every part of yourself you haven't met yet. And when you stop running from it, you stop running from your own potential. Because the truth is, most powerful version of yourself is waiting on the other side of the challenges you're most afraid to face. One of the most overlooked truths in the Shaolin way is that true strength is never just physical. It's deeply connected to how we align our actions with our values. You can be the most disciplined, the most skilled, the most relentless person in the world, but if the way you live isn't in harmony with what you truly believe in, you'll always feel a quiet tension inside. It's like trying to walk with one foot going forward and the other pulling back. You might move, but it's exhausting and it never feels right. In the monastery, discipline is not just about perfecting a form or following a schedule. It's about practicing integrity in every small thing you do. If you say you'll wake up at dawn, you wake up at dawn. If you promise to treat people with respect, you do so whether they deserve it in that moment or not. That kind of consistency between your values and your actions is what builds a deep, unshakable peace inside you. And that peace is what allows you to face any challenge without losing yourself in the process. The world outside can sometimes encourage the opposite. It's easy to say one thing because it sounds good, but act in ways that contradict it because it's more convenient. It's easy to compromise on your values just a little to fit in or to get ahead. But every time you do that, a small part of your inner strength erodes. It's not always obvious right away. You can still look strong on the outside, but over time, you start to notice a gap between who you are and who you want to be. That gap drains your confidence. It keeps you from fully trusting yourself. Shaolin teaches that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If you cut corners in training, you're more likely to cut corners in life. If you avoid discomfort in a stance, you might also avoid hard conversations in your relationships. But when you commit to acting in alignment with your values, even when it's inconvenient, you strengthen a muscle inside you that can't be built any other way. Think about a time when you had to make a choice that was hard but right. Maybe it cost you an opportunity. Maybe it made someone upset. Maybe it meant walking away from something you wanted in the short term. But looking back, you probably feel proud of yourself for holding that line. That's because integrity has a weight to it. It's the kind of strength you carry quietly, but it's always there when you need it. And it becomes a source of calm when everything else feels uncertain. This isn't about being perfect. Perfection isn't the goal. It's about being honest with yourself. If you make a mistake, own it. If you stray from your values, realign quickly. Every day gives you hundreds of small chances to practice this alignment. It might be in how you speak to someone who's frustrating you, in how you show up to commitments you've made, or in whether you do the hard work when no one's watching. And here's the thing, when your actions and values are aligned, you become more resilient in the face of adversity. Why? Because you're not wasting energy on inner conflict. You're not fighting yourself. When you trust your own word, you stop relying so much on the approval or validation of others. You have a compass that's yours alone, and that's incredibly freeing. People sometimes think discipline is about restriction, about saying no to yourself over and over. But in the Shaolin way, discipline is actually a form of self-respect. It's about saying yes to the life you want and refusing to drift away from it. It's about choosing to be the person you can rely on, the person you respect, the person who doesn't just speak their values, but lives them. In moments of difficulty, this alignment is what gives you clarity. You don't have to scramble to figure out what to do. You already know. Your values have already made the decision for you. All that's left is to act. And when you act from that place, the outcome matters less because you know you've stayed true to yourself. The world will always test you. There will be easy paths that lead you away from who you want to be and harder paths that keep you aligned. In those moments, remember that every choice is a brick in the foundation of your inner strength. Build it with care, because when your actions match your values, you stop chasing confidence. You live it. One of the most liberating lessons I learned from the Shaolin way is that life is not something to control. It's something to move with. We spend so much of our energy trying to predict, manage, and shape every single outcome as if the world will fall apart if it doesn't follow our plan. And yet, if you think about it, the moments that shape us the most are often the ones we never saw coming. The very nature of life is change, and the very nature of strength is adaptability. Imagine water flowing through a mountain stream. It doesn't resist the rocks. It doesn't get angry at the bends in its path. It moves around them, over them, sometimes even through them. Over time, that same water shapes the rock, not by force, but by persistence and flexibility. This is the essence of adaptability, not weakness, but an active, intentional way of meeting challenges without losing your shape. In the Shaolin tradition, we are taught to train our bodies to be strong, but also supple, and our minds to be focused, but also open, because a rigid mind can break just as easily as a rigid body. When you believe there's only one way forward, one plan that must happen, you set yourself up for frustration and suffering. But when you stay open, when you adjust without losing your purpose, you discover a freedom that no amount of control can give you. Think about the times in your life when things didn't go the way you expected. Maybe you lost a job, maybe a relationship ended, maybe a goal you worked so hard for simply didn't happen. In those moments, you had a choice, cling so tightly to what was supposed to be that you couldn't see what else might be possible, or take a breath, step back, and adapt. When you choose the latter, you don't just survive change, you grow through it. Adaptability doesn't mean passively accepting whatever comes your way. It means staying grounded in your values and vision, but being willing to adjust your path to get there. If your destination is the top of the mountain, you don't stop because the trail you planned is blocked. You find another path. And often that new path teaches you something you would have missed otherwise. In martial arts, this principle is everywhere. If an opponent pushes, you don't push back harder, you redirect their energy. If a stance becomes unstable, you shift your footing without panic. That's not giving up. It's using what's available in the moment to keep moving toward your goal. The same applies to life. Resistance without flexibility creates burnout. Flexibility without purpose creates aimlessness. But when you combine purpose with adaptability, you create resilience. One thing I've noticed is that adaptable people tend to have a quiet confidence about them. They're not rattled easily because they trust themselves to handle whatever happens next. They don't need everything to go perfectly to feel steady. That trust comes from practice, small, everyday moments where you let go of the need for perfect conditions and instead focus on what you can do right now with what you have. We also need to understand that adaptability is a skill. It's not something you're born with. It's something you cultivate, and you cultivate it by stepping into uncertainty on purpose, even in small ways. Try new things, break your own routines occasionally. Put yourself in situations where you don't know exactly how it will go. Every time you do that, you teach yourself that you can handle the unknown. You build a track record with yourself that says, I've been here before. I figured it out. I can do it again. Of course, this is easier said than done because our minds love certainty. We love to know what's next, to feel in control. But the truth is, control is often an illusion. Life doesn't promise us predictability. it offers us opportunities to respond. And the more we practice responding with openness rather than resistance, the less we're thrown off balance. When you live this way, change stops feeling like an enemy and starts feeling like an ally. Even the challenges that once would have overwhelmed, you become part of the flow. You don't have to like every twist and turn, but you can meet them with presence instead of panic. And that presence allows you to see possibilities you would have missed if you were too busy wishing things were different. We all want strength, but true strength isn't about holding your ground no matter what. It's about knowing when to stand firm and when to move. It's about being unshakable in your purpose, yet flexible in your approach. And when you master that balance, life can't break you. Because in the end, adaptability isn't about changing who you are. It's about becoming so grounded in who you are that you can move with anything life throws at you and still keep walking forward.